call in, but I could hear you guys, but I guess you couldn't hear me. So
No
we'll just
worries.
do it this way.
Yeah, no problem. So I got us recording. We're ready to go now. You can take it away.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back. Love having you guys on today. We kind of thought we would talk. We talked a lot yesterday or last week about intensity and all that. So we want to switch gears a little bit and talk about a little bit how injury happens, specifically when we're talking about load versus capacity. So what I mean by that is load meaning what you take on, and capacity meaning what you can take, right? So your capacity, what we're talking about here is your pain. So if we go above that capacity line, we might be experiencing some kind of discomfort or pain. And if we stay below that capacity line, we're in good shape, no pain, no problem. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of explain it. I'm going to try and do a little bit of a graph too, to kind of have like that visual side of things. I'm a visual learner. I know you guys like to see things as well. So just remember when we're talking here, we're talking about how injuries sometimes happen. First things first, we all walk into the gym with some kind of stuff that's already bugging us. Whether that's you got stress going on in the family, at work, you are dealing with some kind of soft tissue dysfunction, you have a low back that's really sore, whatever the case may be. It's it's almost like someone's going to be dealing with something. It's almost like you're not going to have a perfect life. I hate to say that. It's just kind of the way it goes, right? And so we want to kind of think of that, the first things first. So the first thing that I like to talk about is anatomical defects. What I mean by that is that might be a herniated disc, that might be a muscle strain, that might be a labrum tear. And for this kind of example, we're going to talk about maybe I'm dealing with low back pain. Okay. So the first box that we have on our chart is that anatomical defect. Let's say I have a herniated disc. And at some point, you're probably going to deal with an anatomical defect. It's kind of inevitable. I hate to kind of say that, but whether that's a muscle strain, like I said, a tear, something like that, if you're an athlete, even if you're not an athlete, you're gonna deal with something. So that's kind of the first box we have. And as you can see down here, kind of represents our loads, and then we have our capacity line up here. And remember, when we go above that capacity line, that's kind of where we have a problem. And if we stay below that capacity line, we don't have a problem. And remember too, you can take that capacity line higher and higher as your training goes on, as you guys get more fluent with stuff. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. The second box really that we have that I like to talk about is SDS. That just stands for stress, diet, and sleep. So I'll go ahead and just kind of represent that. So stress, diet, and sleep, that's kind of the second box we have. Inefficiency in your recovery it's going to have to do with a lot of things, right? So if you're super, super stressed out at work, you're stressed out with the kids, this could make this box bigger. Say you have your stress pretty well managed, it can make the box smaller. These boxes are fluid, right? So same with your diet. So say you go 1 week, you're eating fast food, you're just, not getting your macros, you're just not eating the right way. Again, that can make that box bigger. But on the other hand, if you're eating really well, you have everything managed really well, it can make the box smaller. So, and then the last one is sleep. Really important. We've talked about this, I'm sure, on this show before. I know I've talked a lot about it in programs, different webinars and whatnot. Sleep is just so crucial, right? That's when your body repairs, restores. And so if we're not getting the right adequate amount of sleep, if we're not getting good quality of sleep, again, that can make that box bigger or smaller. And David, stop me at any point, or anybody else if you guys are kind of confused by any of this or have any questions.
So let me ask you this. So I know that you have load on your chart right now. When you say that, you're just talking about things in your life that are kind of loading up on each other that
Yeah,
cause that
right.
stress or fatigue, right? And it can be all kinds of different things.
It could be tons of different things. I'm just kind of giving specific examples. But yeah,
Mhm.
it could be tons of different things. We're gonna kind of get into it a little bit more.
Perfect.
Kind of what more of those loads per se kind of mean. And then we'll also talk about actual loads. So like, squatting, deadlifting, all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Um, so the next box that we have is your functional diagnosis. So what I like to explain that with is, I just writing down, that could be, a soft tissue dysfunction. Maybe you have a weakness. Maybe two of the biggest ones that I like to explain: flexibility and mobility. You could have a strength imbalance, or even a skill issue, right? And so that's kind of where working with a trainer, you can make that box smaller, right? And you might be dealing with a lot of those, so that could make that box huge, right? So again, those are fluent, so it's kind of dependent on you and your lifestyle and how you're managing those. Okay, so as you can see, we're getting closer to that capacity line, right? So let's go ahead and say we add on, you drive to work. Not like many of us are doing that right now, but you're driving in general, maybe to the grocery store or whatever the case is. You do actual work, whether that's manual labor, sitting at a desk, whatever the case is, whatever you do for work, that is going to add load to your life, and it could be stressful. So whatever you do, it doesn't really matter. Let's say you take care of the kids or the house, your pets, whatever the case may be. So as you can see, we're getting even closer and closer to that line there. Okay, so I'm dealing with low back pain. I got all of these different loads. I'm dealing with a herniated disc. My stress is just bonkers. It is awful. My diet is okay, and my sleep is just awful. So my box there is pretty big. I know I also have some weaknesses. So my functional diagnosis box is pretty big too. And then I have all those other loads. So I go to work, I deal with my house, I deal with a partner, all that kinds of stuff. And then I want to go to my workout. So I go to squat. I'm feeling pretty good. I go to deadlift at about, let's say 75%. And I'm feeling pretty good. Low back's not bothering me. And then I go to snatch. And my low back is just completely on fire. And so you can see here, we've gone above that capacity line. Now, I'm sure, David, you've heard this before. I know I have, working as a recovery specialist and just in this field as well. Too many people blame that last rep for their pain. It was like, oh, I got to my 50th snatch, but 51 threw me over the board. Or I got to my, 20th squat, but that 21 threw me over, whatever the case is. I want you guys to know that that's not always the case, right? So, for example, I go to the doctor because I did those snatches and my back is just on fire. So the doctor's going to sit there and say, what do you do? And I'm going to say, well, I know I have a herniated disc. My stress levels are pretty high. My diet's okay. My sleep is just really awful. I know I have some weaknesses and some flexibility issues. And then, I go to work, I take care of the house. I have a partner, blah, blah, blah. And then I went to go squat feeling good, did about 70% of my deadlift and was feeling good. But right when I got to those snatches, my back started hurting. I could guarantee, well, I shouldn't say guarantee, I could guess that 9 out of 10 times the doctor is going to say, well, don't snatch.
Don't do
That's your
that.
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can guess
That last
9
thing.
out of 10 times. Yeah. Don't do that last one. And one of the things that the doctor is not asking you about is those other things that we talked about, right? The pre-existing conditions, the pre-existing loads that we just talked about. And so, for example, the anatomical defect probably isn't going, that box isn't really that fluid. But I can manage my stress, diet, and sleep, right? So let's say I can get that box down to about half. I can start working with a trainer on those weaknesses and my flexibility, and anything else that we have in that functional diagnosis box, right? So let's say I can get that down to about half as well. And then again, I go to work, I deal with the house, my pets, my spouse. I go to squat, I go to deadlift, and then I go to my snatches. And as you can see, we're underneath that capacity line. And so, like I mentioned, that capacity line, I mean, the whole goal is to increase that capacity line, right? But what we got to remember here is that we need to keep those boxes in check. So, you can manage, like I said, your stress, diet, and your sleep. We can reduce all of these. We can clean up whether we have a weakness, a flexibility issue, a mobility issue. We can work on that stuff to get those boxes smaller and smaller. So I want you guys to remember that, like, you didn't get hurt because of those last snatches. You got hurt because of all those pre-existing loads, all those pre-existing conditions. And so, if you can really take some time to think about those, and like I said, you're going to walk into the gym with some of those, but we can manage those, right? I mean, we've talked about this a lot of times. I feel like, especially this past year, one of my favorite things about being sent home is we've talked more and more about mental wellness. And I think that's great. I think, us being inside the gym and kind of being, more of like a fitness program manager, we're kind of so honed in and focused on the physical aspect. And a lot of us, I know for myself, I'm speaking for myself, we kind of forgot about that whole other aspect. And so I think if you guys think about that stuff and, work with a trainer, get a program built. I know David was just talking about Fusionetics. We can lower those boxes and make those smaller and smaller so that we're not dealing with pain or discomfort. One of the other
What I'm getting
things,
from what you're saying, Emily, if I can just add to it just a little bit, is that all of this stuff is cumulative, right? It's not just in one single box. You can see everything adding up. So obviously there's structural things that we can't necessarily change, but there are so many things that are within our control. When we talk about the next 2 weeks we're going to talk about spinal health. We just talked about shoulder health, and we talk about the mobility, the activating those muscles, the being dynamic. That's part of moving better too. The Fusionetics is part of moving better too. Getting on to that nutrition stuff with Jessica, or improving little things about your sleep patterns or something like that. You can chip away at those, and then you see how much on your chart right there, how much space that you have now that's kind of freed up, so you can train how you want to, or you have more energy throughout your day, things like that. So it's just a really good mindset shift for us, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Because as those boxers get bigger, you have less space to do. I always call the like work and, playing with your kids and, spending time with your spouse. Those are your needs and your wants, right? And like, why should we sacrifice those for all of those other stuff underneath it? I don't think it should be that way. We should have more room for that stuff, especially, when working out as well. So, um, you know, as those boxes get bigger, there's less space between with what you're dealing with and what you can handle. So yeah, it just goes back to what you said, like that whole mindset, almost doing like a personal check.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of checking in on all of those things and kind of just sitting down with yourself and saying, okay, how can I manage my stress a little bit better? Maybe you're meditating, maybe you're getting a little bit more organized. Maybe you're I know I do this a lot when you're on like a big project or something. You take on a lot, but you don't want to give out anything to anybody else. You don't want to burden them. Maybe you start, giving some more stuff out to other people to take a little bit off of you. Your diet, like David said, talking with Jessica. She is so knowledgeable and so nice. And she loves to do that. That's what she's passionate about. And so, maybe when you're going for that extra plate, maybe thinking about, do I really need this? Do I really need to eat myself to the point where I'm super full? Um, and then sleep too. One of the biggest things I've been doing is no electronics for about an hour and a half before I go to bed. I sit down with a book, or I go and stretch, or I listen to a podcast, whatever the case is. Meditate, journal, whatever it is. Get into a routine and just kind of notice the bad habits that you are doing. And no one's perfect, right? Like, I'm not perfect. There are days where I might go for that extra plate, or I let my stress get the best of me, or I'm not doing my kind of pre-sleep routine. But I love doing my sleep routine, and lately I've been going to bed pretty early and getting up early, and I love it. I wake up early, I work out, and I just am so much energized for the day. I'm ready to go. I just feel so much better when I actually get that full 8 hours. I will say my quality of sleep isn't the best. I go to the bathroom a lot. Little fun fact, I just drink a lot of water throughout the day, and I'm just always so thirsty. So I'm usually up once or twice throughout the night, but I'm always going right back to bed, which is okay.
Maybe
And
when
then
you cut out that screen time, you cut down that hydration just a little bit too at the very end
I
of the
know
day.
I've been trying to, but I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I have my water bottle next to me and I'm just so thirsty that I can't not be in the,
Yeah.
being up in Colorado, it's super dry and we're at elevation and stuff. And so, when you add that with all your workout stuff, it just yeah, gets the best of me. And then, the last thing too is, dealing with, if you have some flexibility issues or mobility issues, working with one of us. That's what we're here for. We can put you through a Fusionetics assessment and get you with a Fusionetics program, or we can work with you one-on-one personal training to help, make that box a little bit smaller. So um, definitely want you guys to take a look at all of those, do kind of a self check and figure out where you guys can try and help yourselves. One of the other things I think it would be great to kind of tie into this is talking a little bit about fatigue management. And for me, when I think of that, I think of my energy levels, my stress again, it's a big one, and then my dehydration. So those are just like three things that I like to think about for myself and my clients. David, what about you? What do you like to think about for that?
Yeah, I think it's a great tie-in for sure, talking about fatigue management. And what I just got from everything that you said too was, if I had to put it into one word, it would be awareness. Awareness of how you're feeling, where you're at right now. It's not beating yourself up and being meticulous about what you don't have going for you right now. It's about, okay, I can change this, I can shift my mindset on this, I can become aware of this and make a small change over time. That's going to make my life better, to make my training better and be happy, more energized, all those things that that
Yeah,
Emily was just saying. So I
and I
think
would say
that's
too,
a good place to start. Go ahead.
definitely. And I love that. And I would also say too, I know that's a lot, everybody. Like I know that's a lot of things to start thinking about and to become aware. My best advice is to start becoming aware and trying helping one area first.
Yep.
So don't throw too much at yourself because like I said, it's a lot. Or maybe taking a little bit from each of those areas and focusing on that. But just remember you're human and that is a lot to take on. So but yeah, I love that, David. Just becoming aware. I can speak for myself. There was, 2 years ago, I could tell you I was just in a different place in my life, different mindset. And so I definitely was not aware of a lot of those things. Um, but everybody has a little wake up call.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing, that's for sure.
Yeah. So once you become aware, and exactly what Emily just said is you pick one or two little action items that you can do and that you will do, right? Because
Right.
you can set these huge goals and you can set a bunch of goals at one time and you probably won't do any of them. If you set two little small goals that you can hit and then you continuously hit those, then you can move on to that next step. And then again, you have some more space on that chart already and you're feeling better already. Whatever it might be, whatever you're lacking at. I'm lacking in so many different ways that I can do one or two here and there as well. Other things that I kind of have a hold of, then okay, I'm doing well with that. But we talked about Fusionetics here at the beginning, and there's actually something that you can do. It's like a daily readiness questionnaire that you have on there. And so if you go on to Fusionetics, you answer a couple of questions and it gives you feedback right away of how you're feeling today, how you should train. Maybe the intensity or volume shouldn't be super high and it's more of like an active recovery day. So check in with yourself just like it does. And that's a good kind of prompt for that.
I see we have a question here in the chat box.
Great.
So Deborah's asking, any way you would adjust that advice for older people, say over 60? Honestly, no. Yeah,
Agreed.
it goes for anybody, any age. I wish I, like I said, would have taken this into account when I was a little bit younger, when I was dealing with some stuff that I just, I wasn't awake. I wasn't realizing, I wasn't doing those self checks. I wasn't aware at all. But I think as you start to do all this, or start to implement it, it does get easier, like anything
Mhm.
in life, but yeah, I wouldn't change anything for any age group. What about you, David?
I agree because there's no hard and fast rules and I mean, it's really flexible what we're saying. And a lot of things, we're not breaking a lot of new ground. We're just changing how you guys might be thinking about this stuff today, right? So I wouldn't change it no matter what age, younger or older. Yeah, just kind of being aware and checking in and picking a couple of things at a time that whatever that might be, whether it's sleep or nutrition or whatever. It's so easy. I know Emily brought up the more food than you should have or the extra plate or anything like that. Everybody here knows exactly what that's like, probably in the last week or so, right? Or last a month or so. Everybody knows what that's like. So just making sure that you have that mindset component down and not being proactive, because with Emily's example there, somebody hurt themselves doing an exercise. You don't have to wait for that, right? We can do all the mobilization stuff and we can make all these small nutritional changes or sleep changes, or how maybe the stressor doesn't change. Maybe you're stuck in traffic and there's not anything that you can do about the traffic, but your mindset towards the traffic, you can't control that. So now you're not stressing yourself out about something that you can't change.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that, David. That's a great point because your mindset's everything. I could be so mad at the person that cut me off, or sitting in traffic, like you said, but what is that really going to do for me? Just going to add more stress and anxiety to my life when it doesn't need to be there. It doesn't need to be like that.
Yep. For sure. I think that was a great way to wrap it up. Lots of good stuff here. Thank you, Emily, for leading that. We have, like I said, we have Jason on the next 2 weeks as well, along with both of us. And we're going to be talking about the spine, what it looks like, how to keep it healthy and strong and resilient and all that stuff. So definitely check in with us these next 2 weeks when we talk about spinal health. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.